So how do you know if you have an edge in poker? That's a good question. If you're going to sit at the table with 9 other players, you better be able to beat at least 5 or 6 of them. If you can only beat 5, it's not a great situation. Or a great situation is you can beat all of them. How do you know? That's the actual question. How do you actually know? The reason why I say it again is because I often ask players, how's the game and all of that, and they say like it's soft, and then I ask them something along the lines of, so what does this player do badly? And they say, oh, he's just not that solid, or something along these lines. And it became apparent to me that people believed they had an edge a lot of the time when they actually didn't, and that it was a likely larger macro league that people thought they had edges because they saw people make mistakes, and they assumed that because they made mistakes and they did something stupid every now and then, that they didn't have an edge. I want to point out that this becomes now a strategy that if you were to do something that looks stupid, but that the EV of it is quite marginal, this would actually be quite a smart thing to do, because then you would get a lot of extra action out of people that believe that you were stupid, but in actuality, you're just doing those things just to gain action, and it didn't cost you any money. It was actually a way of hustling people in, and this, by the way, is part of the game. Just because someone does something stupid that doesn't make any sense doesn't mean that you have an edge. But anyway, back to the point. If you really reliably have an edge in poker, you should be able to explain or understand why you have an edge. Back in the days when I played on full tilt poker and I really started crushing, the fundamental theory of my play was really quite simple. I just saw that people were overfolding to me in various different situations. People used to play really badly pre-flop, where they would play very few hands pre-flop, less than 50% of hands versus a min-raise, and you could just min-raise and win money against them. And sometimes, even in limit games, by the way, you can have quite a big edge from people playing badly pre-flop. And I would argue as well that in mixed games, a lot of times, some of the biggest edges come from third street, the very first decision, because if you play a lot of shitty hands, you can't fucking win. That's just how it is. Anyways, basically the whole premise of what I did back in the days of full tilt poker, where I won over $5 million playing between 5,100 and 501k against the absolute fucking best in the world and beating all of them at both PLO and No Limit, but I was worse at PLO. I ran very hot. No Limit, I ran at EV actually, was I just looked at all the spots and I just saw where people overfolded and then I bluffed them. This is how I beat Tom, by the way. I just looked at all the spots. If they were folding too much to a 2/3 pot size c-bet, guess what? I was betting 2/3 fucking pot size c-bet all the fucking time. They're folding too much to a river c-bet. Guess what was happening on the river? Bet, motherfucker. And really, that's a big portion of the game, is I just find where the leaks are and then exploit them. Now, there are some caveats to this where things get complicated, as people can counteract this. And they can find your own leaks and check raise you or whatever it is. But a really strong player these days will be pretty close to neutral to not really having these kinds of leaks. If you look in the solvers, by the way, you will see that if people start overfolding, the solver just goes completely apeshit and starts getting super aggressive, which I don't actually advise for a few reasons. One of which is because people notice very fast. It's not always true, depending on the subtlety of the spot. And 2, it's very psychologically difficult for most people to handle. I wouldn't necessarily go into those extremes. Machine is another matter, but you should try to aim for being like that, actually, as a poker player. On a higher level, really you should know, where does your edge come from? Is it because you're playing solid preflop and everyone's playing like shit? Is it because there's 2 whales just like blasting off every single hand? It can be that simple, by the way. Is it because people are making A, B, C, and D mistakes, and you know that they're making those mistakes, and therefore they must be making much more subtle mistakes? This, by the way, is often my logic. And that because of this, there's a really high chance that you have an edge. This would be the case if you're playing against very competent opponents, that you have to look at the subtleties of the games to figure out how to really beat them. But basically, you need to look at the mechanics of their game to figure out where this edge is really coming from. It can't be something like, oh, they made a mistake here or there, and it looks really stupid. Like, how could they do this? And it just is bad because it's stupid. Which, by the way, bad and stupid are quite conflated. When I say the words bad, it means that the play costs money. That's why a lot of plays aren't really bad, or they're a little bit bad in compared to the optimal play, but they're not that bad. especially if we change a few things and the system adjusts itself. The system being how the players interact with each other, basically, and how the spot ends up functioning. Long story short, know your foe, and you need to know where your money's coming from in the game when you're playing. If it's coming from some whales, if it's coming because you're the best player of the table, why are you the best player of the table? You need to know for yourself. Don't tell me, probably, because then I'll figure out how to exploit you or learn from you, potentially. Anyway, good luck, guys.